2 because number 2 is different. So number 1 is exactly like the last one. Number 2, what? Number 2 has distributive property, it has combining like terms, and it has solving equations. It's got it all in one. What, if I look at this, is the first thing that I need to do for that equation? What is the first thing you would do if you looked at that equation? Distribute the what? The 8? That's what it's called. It's called an 8. Anyway, distribute the 8. Now that is not a just regular 8. What is that really? 18. Negative 8. Make sure that you're paying attention to the negative sign that is in front of the 8 there. Negative 8 will get multiplied by the 2a and the 8 only. We do not multiply it by the 4a or the 164 because they're outside the parentheses. So I just have to bring those things down. Negative 4a, we have an equal sign, a negative 164. I just bring those down. I have to multiply the negative 8 times the parentheses that are there. What is negative 8 times the 2a? Negative 16a. And then what is the negative 8 times the positive 8?
Negative 6 minus 64.
Yeah, minus 64. You can say it as negative 64. It's not wrong to say it that way. So we have this equation now. And this looks a little bit different from the other types of equations because not only does it have an a in this number and all that other kind of stuff, but it has two a terms. What do I do with the two a terms, the negative 4 and the negative 16a? Yeah, I combine those guys together, and negative 4 and a negative 16 makes negative 20a. We say negative 4 minus 16, and that'll get us a negative 20. Since they are a terms, we write it as a. We did not mess with the 64. We bring it down. We did not mess with the negative 164. We bring it down. And now this is an equation that is exactly like the equations that we've been solving for a long time. We need to get a by itself. What would you do? Add 64 to both sides. When I add 64 to negative 164, I get negative 20a is equal to not 100, but negative 100. And then the last step would be to by negative 20. And this would get me a is equal to a positive 5. And that's how that problem works. Okay? So it is more involved. There were several things that were more involved by this. The first thing is that there is a distributive property in the middle of the problem. The second thing is we had to combine our like terms with the 4a and the 16a, and then we had to solve the equation like normal. So it had a few additional steps. Are there any questions about the distributive or the combining like terms, about anything like that? I will take your silence as a no. Let's do another example, one that has variables on two sides. Looking down at perhaps number 7 would be a good problem to look at. So go up to number 7. This one has some of the same stuff that we had last time. It has distributive property in the middle. It has combining like terms. It has variables on both sides of the equation. So it's going to be more involved than the last one even. Looking at this, name something that I could do first. And you have multiple choices what you could do. Alright, distribute. I multiply the 5 by everything inside the parentheses. I need to bring down the negative 4. I need to bring down the equals negative 19 minus 5n. But when I distribute, what is 5 times the 7n? A positive 35n, so I say plus 35n. And 5 times 5 is positive 25, plus 25. Alright, that is one option that you could do. You don't have to do this next, but that is perfectly acceptable. These are both just plain numbers. They don't have any variables with them. They're just numbers. You can combine them. Negative 4 and a positive 25 will make 21. Bring down the plus 35n. Bring down the negative 19. Bring down the negative 5n because I didn't mess with any of those things. Alright, why would you add 5n to both sides? Alright, so a lot of people like to do that to get rid of the negative. They would add it to both sides. You could have subtracted the 35n from both sides. That would have also worked. But the idea here is to get all your n's on the same side. So I have 5n's over here. that I need to get rid of to get all of my n's on this side of the equation. So that's why I add the 5n to both sides. What does that make when I add 5n there? 21 plus 40n is equal to a negative 19 is the only thing that's left over on this side. Now this is an equation like every other equation we've already done. We have to get n by itself, which means I need to get rid of what? Get rid of what? How do I get rid of the 21? Subtract the 21 because it's a positive 21. And that'll get you a 40n and equals negative 19 minus 21 is negative 40. And the last step would be to divide both sides by 40. So these equations involve a lot of processes. They involved distributive property at the beginning. They involved combining like terms on the second step. They involve getting the variables on both sides by adding or subtracting on the third step. And then the last part of it is an equation just like every other simple equation that we've solved. Are there any questions about that? All right, we got the crickets going, so let's pick maybe one more problem from the front of this for us to do together. And I'll do that one. So, give me a number.
18.
5? All right, several people said 5, so let's look at 5. 5 is a good problem to do because there's something that is minor in here that is a major impact on the problem. You notice the parentheses with the negative sign in front of it. This negative sign is not just a negative, it is really a minus 1. The reason why there are the parentheses around the m plus 6 is because I need to distribute a negative 1 to that m plus 6. So I will have the negative 2 and the positive m and the negative 2 all be left alone. But then I have to multiply both sides, the parentheses by the negative 1. What is negative 1 times m? And what is the negative 1 times the 6?
6.
Not just 6, but negative 6, right? So we need to make sure to distribute the negative sign. Keep your signs there. That is a common mistake for people to miss that negative sign. Now we have several options here. There's a bunch of ways I could go with this problem. I could combine like terms. I could add things to both sides. Where do you want to go next? Pick something to do. There's multiple right answers here. Pick something to get rid of. Do you want to get rid of the 2, the m, the negative 2, the negative 1m, or the negative 6? Alright, let's get rid of the negative 2. How do I get rid of negative 2? I'd add 2 to both sides, and I'd add 2 over here. And this would get me m is equal to, what is negative 2 plus 2? 0. So do I need to worry about that? Nope. Negative 1m minus 6. Okay, add negative 1 or just add 1? Alright, so we add to get rid of the negative 1m by adding 1m to both sides. And what is m plus 1m? 2m is equal to negative 6. The last step would have been to what? Divide by 2. And m is equal to negative 3. Now these are a perfectly good way of solving this problem. I probably wouldn't have picked to add 2 just because I like to combine like terms if I had any. So I could have combined the negative 2 and the negative 6 to make negative 8 on that side. I probably would have gone that route, but I would have gotten the same answer that you got. So it honestly does not matter to me which way you do it. This is perfectly fine. Are there any final questions on this type of problem? Okay, go ahead and do the rest of those. I will give you the answers in just a second.